Okay. Well, we're here. Oh,
Yeah, what's
how was
happening?
yeah? I don't yeah.
What's happening? I'm glad to be here.
How's your week been, man? I do want to. I know we got to talk about these things, but
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious about stuff that we haven't talked about with Obama and all that. Like,
Oh yeah,
how was that experience?
yeah. Obama came through to the studio and hung out with my mentees, and I've been saying this is like the most random fact that I've been giving everybody. He has the softest hands I've ever felt in my life. Like I was so surprised. I was like, man, I know you shake a lot of hands, but there's like it's not a callus nowhere. It's like it
That's
was
crazy.
just like I wanted to ask him what type of lotion did he use. Like that's how soft his hands was.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was a great experience though. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
but
So it was,
I was super happy to see it, and just man, it's just continue to keep moving, bro, and it's exciting. So
yeah, I
I
appreciate it,
I
man.
think about the times where like when we're starting the studio with the kids and students and like the ideas, and I remember just showing me pictures of y'all building it out and everything,
Yeah.
and to see it now it's like really mind blowing, man. So
Yeah, it's surreal, man. It's just like I think when you put your mind to something and just be determined that this is going to be the thing,
yeah,
and then you just watch like the universe just open up the doors for you. Just
yeah,
I just don't know what's next at this point. That's what I'm kind of worried about. Like,
you worried?
yeah, like maybe I peaked. You know what I'm saying? Like the 37, maybe I peaked. I'm like, I don't know what am I going to absolutely do now. Like, so
I think it's just building blocks, man. Honestly, because it's like different layers of time. I mean, I know you for over a decade,
yeah,
and I remember the whole rap thing, and you know that journey.
that was a whole
That was a
journey.
whole
That
different
was a
journey.
whole journey.
So I think it's just a new journey, you know.
Yeah, man. Well, speaking of, I was going to say, man, journeys, you've been on some journeys too, man.
Yeah,
You've been traveling all over the place. Every time I
yeah.
look up, I'm like surprised you're even in town.
You be surprised. You be hitting me like, "Cam, you here?" I'm
That's the
like,
first thing I say. After I say what's up, I'm like, yo, you in town?
yeah, no, it's been good. I was just I went to Dublin.
Yeah, that's what I say. I was going to
Yeah,
say, how was that?
that was cool. I actually have some. My great grandmother is Irish,
Mm,
so I had always been interested to go to Ireland.
really?
Yeah, so
This was the first time?
yeah, it's my first time.
Wow.
Dublin's a cool city, but just going outside of the city, it's like a lot of castles and like old things there. So it was good to kind of experience and engage in that, and I definitely want to go back because my mom was like, "Oh, I want to go" and all this stuff. So
That was going to be my follow up question. I was going to say, like, and so now I know that you want to go back, like, how soon?
if I go back, I may go back with my family. So if my mom goes, she'll probably go like next year or something like that. It won't be this year anytime,
Oh,
you know,
man.
unless
That's,
something leads me there for some reason. But I was just going. It was my birthday, so I was just kind
yeah.
of traveling.
That was a surprise trip for the birthday. I was like, I wasn't. If you gave me
Yeah,
a top five list of, things of whether you were going to go for
go.
your where Cam would go for his birthday, I would.
Where would you think I would go?
I think you would go to like Tanzania or something like that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that's what I would have. I would have figured some place like that. I wouldn't have picked Ireland.
It had to make sense because it was like it had to be quick. You know, and it was a quick. You know, going to Europe is pretty quick,
Yeah.
so it had to be quick because I was only there for like 3 days.
So wait. Oh yeah. So if you went somewhere else, it would have to be a longer trip.
If I went to Africa, yeah, you got to block out at least a week just going back and forth, and you know you have a layover in Europe or something, and then you got to get there. It's just a long trip there and back, so that's like 3 days right there.
Dude, I've never been. We've
You
talked about
gotta
that
go,
before.
man.
Yeah.
You should go this year. Like you know they be doing that stuff in
Maybe
Ghana.
that's what I do this shit. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the next thing.
yeah.
You're right.
I think no, seriously. You know when we took Jay Ivy out there, it was you know he was just like a life changing experience for him, and I don't know. It's every time you go out there with somebody new, it's always just like I remember the first time I went because the first time I went was to Uganda. And that was in 2010, and yeah, it just bring you back to that moment. It's like wow, you know, I've always dreamed of coming to this continent and exploring it and touching down with the people there. And just feeling the love and the energy you get there from it, it's just a different type of experience, you know. Like it's a lot of growth from it.
What was the first thing you did when you uh, got off the plane?
The
Like,
first time,
yeah, like what was the first initial feeling or first thing that you like when you first got off the plane? landed back home in Africa? You know what I'm saying? It's like, what was the first initial thing that you either felt or seen that you was like, wow, I'm here?
I think I just remember the energy of the people and the reception that I got from like people there. It was just all love. Like it didn't feel like you weren't unwelcome or not welcome there in the space, and everybody was just, hey brother, blah blah blah. Like it's that vibe. So that's the first time when I first went to Uganda. That was the experience there, and I was with some of my family members. Like Jay went with me,
Yeah.
and Rome, and so like it was just that I think that was the first thing, was just feeling the love. And from that time on, I've been, I can't even, maybe like, I've been to Canada maybe like 8 or 9 times now.
That's nice.
Maybe 10, because I went to South Africa too. I forgot
Oh,
about that. Yeah.
That's dope.
So,
Man, I got to catch up. I got to get one on the board. I can at least get one.
well, I'm going to try to bring it into some of these things. I was actually curious about, because I think we talked about before, like your school upbringing and stuff like that. I know you play football. And, I know we have the connection with Mike Allen because you guys went to Valparaiso.
Yeah.
But I don't even really know what schools you went to growing up.
Yeah.
Like
We've never had that conversation.
yeah, we never had that convo, so I'm curious actually.
It's a crazy journey, actually, now I think about it. So like in preschool, I was taught by my mom. I went to my mom's school.
Okay.
And it was Dulles over there on 63rd and King Drive on O Block. Right? So I was over there it's right next door to Parkway. And I was over there for a little while. Then kindergarten, I went to school with my brother for Steve. It was called Stevenson. And then I got accepted into a school for the gifted.
Okay.
Like the X-Men type stuff,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was a school
was your
for the
power, dog?
It was nagging the teachers. That's what I did a good job at. But I think they've seen how well I drew at my age. Like I was able to draw like Ninja Turtles. Like they look just like Ninja Turtles back in the day. And I just was hanging out with my dad, and that's where I picked it up from.
Okay.
And so they seen I excelled in that way. And then so I went to this school called Ted Leonard.
Okay.
Went there for a couple of years, and then this is when like the shift happens for me. Is the cops had raided our house?
Oh.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Got
when that
really
happened?
dark, right?
Yeah.
Switch out of nowhere.
How old were you when that happened?
Now I was in third grade, so I was
Okay.
about like
I do remember this conversation. You talking about this, but you can go ahead.
yeah. So it was the wrong house. Technically, they were supposed to raid the house across the street, and of course, this is back in the days. This is back in like, I don't want to say the height, but 80s, 90s, that whole crack era stuff.
Yeah.
And so my neighborhood had just been like changing over for real, and it was what we always knew, but it got really serious. And so when the cops had raided the house, and they threatened to do whatever they was about to do to everybody, and thankfully they realized, of course, like this is the wrong place, and my parents sued, and then they got this lump sum of money, and my dad was getting ready. He's like, man, what are we gonna do with all this money and all that stuff? My mom was like, we're gonna put it in their education. And he was like, okay. And so and we end up going to this Lutheran school.
Okay.
And so I was in private school for like majority of my life, except for like maybe 2 years I went to like public school.
Wow. Why did you end up going to public school? What was?
Because I fought against being at a
you was
Lutheran
rebelling.
school. Yeah, I was like, man, I don't want to be here wearing uniforms and all that stuff like that. Like I was upset about that. And but when I got a chance to get back in tune with I met some of my best friends at the Lutheran school, and I just stayed cool with them, and that's what we followed each other till one of them, me and him, ended up going to college together.
Okay.
Yeah, but we know each other since about like 3rd and 6th grade and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like I stayed with the same friends. And
how far away was the school from where you lived, the Lutheran school?
it was in walking distance.
Okay,
Like,
so you was
from
still
third,
there.
from
Okay.
3rd until about like 6th or 7th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, like I was walking to school and had to walk through the same neighborhoods and stuff like that. And but then when I got to 7th grade, it moved a little bit further. We had to catch the bus. And high school, I ended up going to the same place I went to junior high.
Okay.
So
Yeah, my nephews are having that experience. They've been going through The same school.
I was gonna say, what about you? What was your school journey like?
My school, I bounced around a lot. My mom was young when she had me, and she was in college.
How old
She
was
was
she?
20, and my dad was 18.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was in college. She was like valedictorian when she was in high school. Like she was real smart, you know. But she ended up getting pregnant, having me. And I lived with a lot of family members when I was younger. So my grandparents, different aunts and uncles, like Jeremy and his mom and dad, I lived with them a lot. And so I kind of went to different schools. I went to school in Texas. I went to school in Iowa. I went to school up here. And then my mom ended up moving to the suburbs, like North Chicago first. We lived in North Chicago. And I went to, we went to a private school, a Catholic school, and then I went to a different school. The first grade,
alternative
second
school?
grade, went to a different school. Third grade, I went back to Iowa. Fourth grade, my mom got married.
Wow.
So I went to a different school, fourth and fifth grade, and then she got divorced, so I went to a different school, sixth grade, seventh grade. Novak King, that was like the most hood school, like in North Chicago. It's closed now.
It's
But
called what?
Novak King.
Novak. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned a lot of like how to play spades and all these things at the school.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't a really great student in terms of just school. I was bored.
Do you feel like since you had to travel a lot that you were you able to form any sort of attachments in those ways, or did you feel like
I think my cousins was those are my friends. I had other friends in and out, but it was really my family that was really my friends when I was younger. I didn't really start having like close friends that I've been connected with longer till maybe I was in high school, because I went to the same high school. I went to Waukegan High School. But I think looking back on it now, I can tell you I was bored with school and I wasn't challenged in that way. It wasn't until my senior year I got to go to a TV class at the technology campus in Lake County.
Okay.
And you'd be there for like maybe 3.5 hours, and that was the only class I was ever interested in. And I used to I'd be skipping school and just go to that class. I can't miss the bus to the technology campus. So I think that was kind of what moved me. And if it really wasn't for sports, I wouldn't, be able to do the things I did, go to college and do all those things. But because I could play basketball, it gave me a lot of third, fourth, fifth chances at things until I got to a point where I got my head right and was like, okay, I need to like take advantage of this.
Wow. I want to go back to one thing, right? Because you said you had to bounce around to different schools.
Yeah.
I know a lot of kids get anxiety when they have to be like that person to stand up in front of the class, like the new student.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel that whenever you had to stand up in front of class and be like, all right, we got a new student
Definitely.
here every year? You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I was just so quiet. I was super quiet when I was young. Like, I'm laid back now, but I was just quiet. Like shy. Like, I didn't talk. I didn't talk too much. I like to play sports, so that's how I got friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm playing all sports. I'm good at that. So people want to pick me for the team and all that stuff. But I was real quiet in class. And I probably shied away from having to say anything or talk real low, when it was my time to speak up. And it wasn't really till college. When I got to college, I started really coming out of my shell and just like learning to be myself.
Yeah.
But I was always pretty quiet.
Man, that's interesting. I mean, I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you always been so laid back and chill. So.
Yeah. So I mean, so you went to high school at the private school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was Luther South. I went to Luther South Junior High, Luther South High School. And at that time, my brother was also there, like my older brother. So he was, and me and my brother like opposites. Like if you meet us, you kind of be like, "Oh, are y'all leaving?" Now, then we were related, but you be like, it's different personality types.
Yeah.
And I just remember he had it tough. Like he had to deal with the older kids when he first came in as a freshman and had to go through the bullying part, all that stuff like that. I came in and just skated. And so everybody loved me, all the stuff like that. And there was always this tension between us because he was like, yo, it's not fair.
Yeah.
I'm about to go through all this. And he just gets everything he wants. And I was just like, you can get it too if you just try a little harder. Yeah. Or maybe try as much. I don't know. It was terrible. But I just remember having so much fun in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was probably the most social I've been. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, I used to. I loved every aspect of anything. Like, they would always volunteer me for everything. I was like the class storyteller.
Okay.
Anytime we got into so little drama, whatever it was, we sit back at the lunch table like, Drake, tell the story, and I'm like, all right, so check it out. This is what happened, and then I would be so vivid with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it, and I wanted to be. I mean, I was on the basketball team,
Yeah.
and that was fun. But then I started playing football, and I
Yeah.
always wanted to play football. Like, I was denied playing football when I was in 6th grade.
Okay. So you didn't play football till you was in high school?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I tried. I was like, yo, man, I'm trying out for this school. And they was like, nah, you too short. You'll never be a running back. And he probably didn't say you'll never
How
be a
you
running
gonna
back.
never be a running back in short? That's a,
Yo, because they said, it was like, yo, you're too small.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They was like, yo, you'll never be a running back. You know how, like, so I was like, at that point, I had a chip on my shoulder. I was like, Michael Jordan, you said, I took it personally.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got into high school and they gave me the opportunity, like, one, our team was terrible.
Okay.
That
My
was-
team was terrible high school too.
Y'all probably wouldn't. We could have a terrible off, and I guarantee you,
I
we would
don't
win.
know.
We would win in a terrible off. Like, my team was
Y'all was getting smacked.
all the time. People, I think people was trying to book us for homecoming. Like, I think they was planning. They was probably planning homecoming around when they was playing us. Just like, yo, y'all want to see a game?
Yeah.
We about to put up basketball numbers on this team.
Yeah.
And so, but I used to love it, man, because I wanted to be like Barry Sanders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man.
He was like my favorite player to watch when I was younger.
Yeah.
Him and Dion, both of them.
Him, Dion, Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith, yeah.
Yep, those are my favorite ones. And so, but that's what I used to love. Like, that was my thing. Like, football was my thing. And then I was like, homecoming king at one point.
Okay,
Prom.
you was that guy.
Yeah, I was. Oh my God, they had like. All right, never mind. It was like, there's all sorts of stories.
No,
that
you
can be
go
told.
ahead, man.
Yeah, but I just remember like really enjoying my high school career
Wow.
and feeling like I was like, oh, this is. Why do people not want to be here? You know, even though I didn't do anything.
Because I was a person that didn't want to be there. So
Yeah, I enjoyed being there. I was like, oh, I could just cause all sorts of havoc in this school. Like I was all sorts of everywhere. But I enjoyed it, man. Like I truly, truly, truly enjoyed my high school experience.
that's good.
Can you talk a little bit about what your high school was like? Since it was a Lutheran school, did it pull from other parts of the city? What were your friends like?
Okay. Yeah. So my school experience was, even though it was a Lutheran school, I'm not too sure if any of the kids identified as Lutheran. Like, I think we're all Baptist kids whose parents wanted to send them to a school that was quote unquote safer. So it was like, oh, it's not public school. So, hopefully you don't have to deal with some of the same things, even though we absolutely were. We were still the same exact things. We just probably kept it a little bit more quiet than other people did. But the dynamics, we watched it change over the years, and not more so in the population of the students, but in the the dynamics of the teachers. So we would start off seeing like it was a mixture of different teachers where it was maybe we may have like maybe 5 black teachers and the rest were white teachers.
Okay.
And then as we got into high school, that number just kind of completely flipped.
Oh wow. Okay. So there became more black teachers.
Yeah, and then by the time I got to my junior, senior year, we started getting a lot of white teachers who was fresh out of college.
Oh, so that's
And
different.
so then it was like, and then some of them you would see like the door rotate where it's like, hey, I'm just only here to get my experience and I'm leaving. And so we kind of would just tap out with certain people. We'd be like, all right, there's no point of us getting close to some of these people because obviously you're only here for a year or so, and then you're out the door. You're not connected to me.
Yeah.
And but it was different because like I know for some of the teachers who we really had a connection with, they profoundly changed my life. Okay. So actually, one of them is my mentor still to this day.
What teacher is that?
His name is Kyle Dixon. I'll never forget this dude.
Okay.
Yeah, he came in. He was from oh my God, Tuskegee.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So black teacher came from Tuskegee. He's a young dude. He was like probably in his like early 20s or something like that, or mid 20s. And he seen me rapping in the hallway, and he was like, "Hey man, you could go far if you actually
Yeah.
talk about some of substance
Yeah.
instead of trying to kill everybody." And I was like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "No, just listen to what I'm saying." And he started giving me CDs, and the first CD he gave me was Little Brother, The Listener.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Changed my life,
That's
man.
wild.
Changed my life. Yeah, that was a profound time for me.
How big was the school? Like, what was your graduating class? Like, how large of a school was it?
And that graduating class had to be like maybe 60 students.
Wow. Wow. That's such a
Yeah.
contrast because when I went to Waukegan, my freshman year was the largest freshman class in the history of the school.
Jeez, how many kids were there?
I don't even remember. It was I can't, I have to look back. I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
Was it like
We had thousands. They end up
thousands?
splitting it and then made just a freshman, like, not my
Campus?
year. Yeah, this had a freshman campus, and now they have freshman, sophomore campus, junior, senior.
Wow.
Yeah, because it used to be East and West, and then they eventually combined it, and like in the '80s, like early '90s, I think the late '80s they combined it, and then like I said, when I came, so I feel like I got lost in the sauce in a way. They was just trying to pump kids in and out of that school. It wasn't really
Yeah.
like a lot of time and intention unless they knew a parent or knew something like that. My mom worked so much, so she wasn't really involved in that way. She actually traveled a lot. Her job actually, and I think that's something that obviously inspired me to travel in my life because my mom would be
Yeah.
all over the world. I'd be having
Yeah.
to look on the map like, where's she at? Finding new countries I ain't never heard of. So that's, and she did probably the bulk of her traveling while I was in high school. So I think that's also a big reason why my high school went the way it did in terms of, my attendance. I think that was the biggest thing for me. It was actually attending school.
So when you weren't attending school, where were you?
At home trying to film something or make some music or do something fun. I wasn't like a troublemaker, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I figured out how to like record on the computer. I think I was a freshman in high school. My aunt had this little recording program on the computer, and so I used to hook up the stereo and speakers, and we used to do songs and like rip beats off the radio and like loop
Yeah.
them, and then make songs and then do overdubs. Like I had a whole situation set up, and we used to make VHS to VHS like highlight videos, like of playing basketball or little
Like M1
movies and
tapes?
stuff. Yeah, M1 tapes. And I figured out how to hook up the RCA cords too, so you could put a little soundtrack behind it.
Oh, wow.
Like you could put the right channel, like the actual sound, and the left channel, like the
Yeah.
music. I don't know how I figured all this stuff out, but I was skipping school doing that instead.
That's how you were doing it.
So I used to be doing stuff like that, like seriously. And I lived between my aunt's house and my mom's house. So, we had a bus card, so you can just a city bus card. You could just leave the campus anytime and go get on the bus and go anywhere. So I would just go to my aunt's or my mom's, and I'll go to my aunt's a lot because she had the computer, and I'd just be up there recording songs and stuff and trying to make stuff while nobody's home. Or my cousin sometimes would skip to it. We'd do it together.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a similar
Yeah.
question? I know you mentioned that your high school was a lot bigger. What was your class like? Did your school pull from a lot of places, and how was that school different from some of the other schools that you went to in Iowa and the other places?
It's somewhat diverse. I think it's a large black population, a large Latino population, but there was still a good amount of white, like Caucasian people that went to our school as well. They had like honors class. I feel like it was a typical, public high school. Lake County is actually one of the best performing counties in the nation. But our school, we had such a large gap between like a Stevenson or those type of schools, but like Waukegan, North Chicago, Zion, we had it was like such a big gap in performance. So I thought that was very interesting, and later on in college, I actually did a little short expose, like documentary around that, like the difference between like the graduating class and the percentages and so on and so forth. So I think like in my experience with other schools, I think that Iowa, I went to school in Waterloo, Iowa. That's where I was born. That's where my mom is from, and they had a really good system at the time. I don't know what it is now because it's become a bit of more people moved out because a lot of factories closed. But at that time, they had a really good education system, and they actually used to send a lot of athletes, to the pros and different things. There's a lot of that went to like East High School in Waterloo, West High School. So a lot of people went to NFL. Some people went to the league. Some people, track stars was in the Olympics. My uncle was in the Olympics. So yeah, it's just that's the kind of thing they push out there. In my experience there in Texas, I don't really remember. I went to kindergarten when I was in Dallas, so I don't really recall like what it was.
Yeah. I had a question. Like, I know you mentioned, what I'm saying, your mom a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What about your dad?
My dad, he was just moving around. My dad lives in Seattle. He was in Seattle pretty much since I was in high school, and he lived in Iowa before that. He lived in Detroit. A lot of my family's from Detroit. My grandmother had moved to Detroit when he was young, so he didn't grow up with his mom. And she took my aunts, and my uncle stayed in Iowa with my granddad. So my dad he was young. He was 18 when I was born. We didn't have much of a relationship at that time. We have a pretty good relationship now.
That's good.
As an adult. I kind of grew up, and I don't know. You get older, you start to understand. Like, man, my dad was 23 when he was doing. He was 25. Like,
you humanize him, right?
Yeah, and then you start to realize, him and my mom was having issues or whatever. Mom end up getting married again, and having that thing. So, they just was not seeing eye to eye for some time. But as I got older, I have some other brothers, younger brothers. My youngest brother's 15. So, and he lives in Seattle. My other brother lives in Seattle, Jalen. He's like 27. And at the time, Jalen, when I kind of squashed up with my dad, Jalen was like 14. And I didn't even know I had a brother till I went out there and I seen my little brother. He was 1 year old. My dad was like, "This your little brother."
It's like, wow.
And so from that point on, I actually try to go out to Seattle at least once a year. Just go see them, connect with my brother. My brother plays basketball. He's like a ranked basketball player. He travels all over the nation. So I've caught him in Atlanta. I've caught him in Florida, in different places, playing in tournaments and stuff like that.
That's dope.
So I just try to stay in tune with my brothers because they look up to me. I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of all my siblings. And I try to stay in tune with my dad too, because he kind of need it. He still need it, and he's learning to be a father by raising his youngest son. So it's been actually kind of funny to watch.
That's crazy. That's dope.
And you mentioned like the schools combining East and West, and like teachers were just concerned with like pumping kids.
Yeah.
If you could like talk to little Cam, like what do you wish like you had when you were younger, like or got from those teachers that kind of was missing?
I wish that. I think that if a teacher could see my potential or the things that I was actually good at, and like help hone in on that and help give me a little direction, I think that would have been great. I think I had family in my life, and those people was really like help guide me, not like the public school system. I had a mentor too, James White, who he used to be like production manager for like. He was production manager for the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Dizzy Gillespie.
Dang.
He taught me how to do sound.
Wow.
And when I was like, he went to my mom's church, and I would start doing stuff at the church and doing sound. So he was actually a big mentor that kind of helped give me some guidance and keep me on track. So I would say I had that in my life. It just didn't happen at the schools, But I do think that I had a lot of potential. I was a very creative person, and I was smart. I wasn't like, like I got all the stuff. It was just like I didn't feel like pushed,
Yeah.
It was like I could do the bare minimum and skip school and do all the stuff and still pass the class, So it was like, why like try?
Yeah.
Were there arts in your schools? Like, do you remember art class or music class or any class that you could use to express yourself creatively?
We had an art painting class that was actually turned into a whole comedy because there was a lot of people on my football team in the class, and we used to just joke each other's art because we had like a time where you had to critique the art.
Oh, yeah,
And so
yeah.
that was just like a time where it just became like a comedy show, but we didn't have like a serious art class. But like I said, there was a technology campus for Lake County. and you could go as a junior or a senior. And I think that was a very like engaging program. And I learned a lot. That was actually my teacher in that class. Actually, was very, very good, very knowledgeable, and it helped me pursue the career I have now. Was that class?
That's beautiful. And they at ours, we had some art classes. I think my teacher, Miss DeVries and Mr. Monarch, like they tried to, switch it up a little bit. We had like everybody's favorite time was like when we had like pottery, like they bring in the clay and we make our own little pots and stuff like that. That was really fun, and that was stuff that we weren't used to.
Yeah.
We used to like watercolors and charcoal or whatever it is, and we was struggling with that. But I was kind of surprised. Like now that I look back at it, we were pretty decent. Like I think that for us to even have that was a big deal. We had poetry class afterwards after
You had
school.
poetry?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I joined poetry.
I'm sure you did.
Oh man, I wanted to be Darius Lovehall. You know what I'm saying? I wanted.
That was one of my favorite movies too.
That's a great movie.
That's one of my favorite movies.
I wish I was Love Jones. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, that's what I wanted to be. And like but the problem was for me was like when I joined, I thought there was going to be more girls in our poetry class.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Nah, it was just a bunch of guys who wanted to rap, and I was just like, okay, this is not what I wanted. And but I did remember I joined that, and I think that was one of the few spaces that challenged me when it came to writing. And they were like, all right, well, here's this different prompt, and what does this bring out of you? And now I'm like thinking outside of the box of what I normally would say. And at first it used to be about reaction.
Yeah.
Whereas it started to change up where I'm like, all right, I don't even have a reaction to, for me to kind of evoke out of somebody else. I just have what I feel.
Yeah.
So now I'm like just talking about what I know. And I think had that not happened, I probably would have still been on the same pace where I was at.
Yeah,
and I'll
yeah.
not even be in tune with my emotions and be like, okay, well now you have to pull from something else and kind of go deeper within self. So, but I definitely did appreciate those type of classes and workshops and things like that, that type of exposure. Because I think that's what we're, as kids, you're really at the mercy of what you're exposed to.
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah, like if you're not around something, it's like, you kind of just assume it to be what you see.
Yeah.
So if you turn around and get introduced to something else, and you're like, oh, wow, there's an exception to this. And, I can change up this, or I can be this, or this is a part of me that actually is dwelling within me that I've never even had any sort of interaction with. So it's good when you're challenged in those ways.
I will say I am reminded of Corey Ratliff. He was at Novak King. I was at middle school.
Yeah.
And he was a first-time teacher at the time. He was a music teacher. We ended up having two music teachers for I don't know what reason. Maybe their schedules wasn't aligned, so we had two different. But Corey, who I still talk with to this day, he was like bringing in like house music and like allowing us to like, we was doing the other teacher was doing like Mozart and all this stuff. But
Beethoven.
He was bringing in all kind of different music and like really allowing us to engage in like different sound, like stuff we might actually be interested in. And I remember that music class, and that class was just out of hand, but everybody would actually come and pay attention to in when Corey had the class. Yeah. And Corey ended up going to my mom's church later and became the music director there. And I still stay in contact with Corey. I talk to him, I see him sometime, and we still talk. I still bring that up sometime. Like, man, that was actually the best class in that whole school was your music class.
Do you feel like schools would be more successful with engagement if there's more classes like that, or do those classes work because there's such a rarity?
I think that it would be more successful if there's more classes like that. I think if you kind of geared the education to the students, like every kid is going to be different. Like, some kids will have interest in this, some kids will have interest in, math, some kids will have interest in the arts, some kids will have interest in the sciences. I mean, you got to make students be well-rounded, but also I think that allowing them to focus on the things that they are good at or interested in will help them grow. Like, because, we're all going to move in different directions as adults. And I think just cultivating what you're actually have some interest in the first place
Yeah.
will make you want to go to school. Like it'll make you want to, like I said, with the TV class, I wanted to go. I didn't want to miss that class for nothing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, no matter what, I'm like, man, I gotta make this class. Like I had straight A's in that class. I had all my projects were A's. Everything was great because I was interested
Yeah.
in what was happening, and my teacher was engaging to me in that moment. So yeah, I think so.
So we should maybe give them more autonomy early on.
Yeah.
Like, how soon do you think that should start? Like, should it be like high school, or should we even start even earlier than that?
I think earlier. I think, you know, my friend Vlad, he has his daughter like a Montessori as a school, and he just telling me, he was like, I don't know about this, but then he was telling me some of the stuff they're doing. I was like, that seemed actually kind of cool, like kind of allowing, you know, his daughter to kind of decide like how the school is gonna go, how her education is gonna go. And I mean, I think I love to learn, and I think you know, we love to learn as human beings. It's just a matter of like how we're learning and what we're learning, and when.
I always feel like, you know, as creatives, one of the first ways that we learn is creatively. Like, it's through music. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody learns the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and all that stuff is like the same melody.
Yeah.
So it's like when it's like, for that to be the basis of how I'm learning and digesting information, and then out of nowhere it just gets ripped from me and be like, yeah, nah, never again. Don't worry about that. Now you got numbers. Like, well, what happened to the melodies? What happened to the fun? What happened
did that
to
stop for you, like incorporating music into learning? When did that stop for you in your education?
It felt like once you start getting into the grades with numbers, first grade, second grade, third grade, I feel like it just immediately gets taken away.
Yeah.
But the first couple years is fun. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, here's these numbers, here's these colors, and draw this and do that. And then you get to a certain point, it's like, all right, now you got to spell.
Yeah.
All right, and then here's like math, and then here's all these other things that's more like, maybe they could be fun, but nobody actually tries to make it fun.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden you're relearning, and some things you gravitate towards and some things you don't. And then there's consequences to things if you don't get the right answer, whereas before it used to be like, oh, that looks like a star. That's close enough. Now it's like, you know, F. That is not the word that you said it was. It sounds like it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I felt like that was around the time when education for me changed up, and it wasn't as fun. And then, like you said, I felt like I got bored with some of the other stuff. It's like, okay, it's just regurgitation.
Yeah.
And I used to sit in high school. I would draw a line between my piece of paper where I was taking notes.
Yeah.
And one half would be writing raps, and the other half would be taking notes. And it's sure enough, it was like I felt like I was smarter than the school, because I was like, I could do both, and I could just give you this information. And you think I learned it, when I really didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just giving you the information right back, and then you consider that to be learning.
That's a good point. Like the pace of learning. Like some people need a slower pace, but then what about a lot of the students that I'm not getting too much out of this? I could do two things at once and still like. What do you think about that? Do you think that, I know there's like honors classes and stuff like that, but like, do you think that our students would benefit from like like a better pace of learning, or like a more challenging pace?
Yeah, I think it's really learning how people digest information, because like, the pace that we usually kind of set is like everything goes in like these spans of either quarters or weeks. You know what I'm saying? Where we're like, all right, we're gonna teach you this in 1 week, and then here's this test to prove that you learned it. And that may not be a thing. Sometimes it's like it's a cumulative thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think about like, if we could switch it up to learn how we all digest it and be like, okay, you probably better, you're more suited in this way. And then somebody else like, oh, well, I may opt into this, and see how we at least address it. Then I would be curious to see some of the information, or at least to see the results that come back for it. Because I feel like if somebody switched up how they was engaging with me when I was younger, I would have been like so much more engaged than what I was. Like, I got to the point where I was just showing up in the morning, doing my homework literally the morning of, and just like, all right, what's this? Okay, here you go. Turn it in. And then I got senior of the year. That was the craziest part. Like,
That's
I
crazy.
was like, yo, I halfway did like my senior year. Like, I was like showing up, and then end up getting like an award for it. And I was like, yo, this is the most backwards thing. I didn't even show up to the ceremony because I didn't take it serious.
At the beginning, you mentioned some of the mentoring work you're doing now?
Yeah. So I got into mentoring because I would show up to uh, different spaces as an artist, and they would have me speak at colleges, right?
Yeah.
So I would talk, and then I'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is great." You know what I'm saying? This is fun. And I would go speak at high schools, like, "Yo, this is great. This is fun." And then I just got like addicted to that feeling. I was like, "Man, I would leave out of that conversation with about like 5, 6 kids who would be like, man, just I need advice for all this stuff." And so I was like, maybe I could do this more consistently.
Yeah.
And while I was signed to this label, and I turned it around, and
We were both signed to that.
Yeah, we
Well,
was
kind
both-
of. I wasn't signed, but I was working with
he was
it.
working with it, and it was an experience to say the least. But I was in between like records, and I was like, okay, well, I got this phone call from this guy named Chad from Guitars Over Guns. He was like,
Yeah.
hey man, it's like 7 in the morning too. So he calls at 7 in the morning. He's like, hey, I heard that you like mentoring and things like that. Would you be willing to come in to help our program out? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. I have free time, so why not? And sure enough, like that same day, I was in the class. Like
Wow.
literally the same day. It was like maybe an hour later. He was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
it starts now."
Yeah.
And so went, and I loved it. And that one day out the week turned to 2 days out the week, and now we're at this space because we were at this place called the UCAN Academy. And when we walk in, of course, there's metal detectors. When you first walked in, I wasn't really fazed by that, but what I was fazed by was there would be kids who was getting like tackled by like security guards.
Yeah.
These like big guys I would see almost at the club,
Yeah.
and they holding these kids down. And the kids are just like fighting back and stuff like that, and I was just kind of surprised. So I was just like, "Yo, these are just kids.
Yeah.
These like 12, 11 years old, and they're cursing and everybody's arguing back and forth." But then we sat down and did music. It was like a whole different side of the kid,
Yeah.
which is what I truly feel is that at the end of the day, we're all still that same kid back in the day. Like, yo, these kids are really just want to have fun. They want to feel safe. They want to feel protected. They want to feel heard. And the school was, at the time, those classes wasn't doing it for them.
Yeah.
But then here it is. It's almost like you mentioned, like, yo, I would show, like you said, I'd show up to this TV class.
Yeah.
And everything else I'm cool on. And how they said like that was a bargaining chip where they was like,
Yeah.
yo, if you don't show up to this, then you can't go to the TV class.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
the same thing
Exactly.
where the security guards would call us and be like, hey man, I got Mr. Andre on the phone, and you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna tell him right now, you know what I'm saying, I'm telling him what you did, and they'd be like, no, don't tell him. And they get on the phone and be like, hey man, look, they were tripping, but I'm gonna get it together. I'm
Yeah.
all right, and you just calm them down, but just be like, hey man, just cool out.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just love that feeling because you can see the impact. And now, one of my first ones who I mentored over there at the academy, man, he's about to graduate college now.
That's beautiful, man.
Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when he graduated out of 8th grade, he called me up to be at his graduation. When he graduated high school, he called me up and said, hey, I need you to come down here to be at my graduation. And then now it's like, here we are
Yeah.
at this point.
It's beautiful to see that, man. Like when you're involved, helping young people kind of get on track or stay on track, and then to see how they kind of evolve and like, grow as people. Like even in Florida, I'm involved with Genesis Hopeful Haven. It's this one kid, Josh. He was, man, he didn't go to school. He, was a foster youth, and he was like at the edge of like, yo, you can't even go to high school no more. You too old. You know what I mean? And his last year, he just started getting himself together. He's like a vegan now. He works out. He's in college. He like he's got a job. And it's just like, wow, dude. He was like overweight. You know what I mean? Now he's
Yeah.
like
Slipped up.
toned. Like he
Yeah,
look good. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
man, you've been working out. He's like, yeah, I've been doing this and that. But it's just like, could have gave up on him at any stage. But they didn't give up on him in any way. And now he's where he's at, and it's just beautiful to see.
Yeah.
It's like kids, they have that potential. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people can count them out, but if you continue to believe in them and like just give them some real
Yeah.
direction, and like you got to be on them. You can't just let them do whatever. But it's like show them love though, and show them care,
Yeah.
compassion,
Yeah.
and I think that's just beautiful to see.
That stuff matters, man.
Yeah.
Like people may not always remember all of those instances, right? But they do remember those moments where you make them feel like, you know, like they're valued.
Yeah.
And so as young people, especially if they're probably going through so much stuff
Yeah.
and dealing with so many different people who are quick to write them off, then of course they're going to revert back to their own like defense mechanisms, right? But then here's somebody who's the antithesis of that, and they're like, yo, this person's actually showing up for me. And even though I'm pushing them away, they still showing up for me. Or they keep saying I'm gonna be somebody. Why they keep saying that?
Yeah.
And but it sticks with them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got one mentee, no pun intended. His name is Sticks, and I would always tell him, I'm like, yo, man, you know, change the world, change the world, Sticks. You're gonna change the world. And he's always wondering. He's like, man, why do you say that to me, man? And I was like, cause you will. Watch.
Yeah.
And, you know, little bit by little bit, man, like this kid went through everything, everything under the sun, man. Like this was, you know, a young man who I brought to rehab, you know what I'm saying? Like it was a lot. And then he turns back and he's like, now you look at where he is in life. And whenever we have these phone calls, he's like, man, I just appreciate you always pouring into me.
Yeah.
I appreciate you always talking to me like you ain't never like, you know what I'm saying, waver or anything. It's like, no matter what keeps happening, you still keep saying, like, yo, you're going to change the world, man. You're going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, this stuff that I keep thinking about. And he's like, I got to prove you right.
Yeah.
I'm like, man.
Do you get the sense that he ever heard that from any of his teachers?
I do not believe he's heard that. And I think that's why I cut through, because he's been probably longing for that, for some, just for it to come from somebody. And we talk about that a lot because his relationship with his parents wasn't the best either. And he had been wanting somebody to be protective in that way or to believe in them and pour into him. And so that's why I think those words hold a different level of weight, because it's like, man, I've been waiting to hear somebody say that to me. And here it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like maybe the other things that other people said about me isn't true. Maybe what this person who, you know what I'm saying, is somebody I revere in some way. And, you know, if they believe in me, who am I not to believe in me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And what were some of the mental hurdles, and were there people like, you know, Andre's talking about, Add-2's talking about, that sort of helped you in your personal growth when you said sports was really impactful and that later in life?
Yeah, sports was impactful. I mentioned James White, who was a mentor who taught me sound. He kind of continued to believe in me and show me, you know, different avenues to do things creatively. I think some of my coaches were very impactful. Coach Burke, when I was in Dallas, Texas, even though I gave him a headache my time out there, he just taught me like a real true value of like hard work. And I went to junior college and played basketball. We were third in the nation. I went to Richland College. And I learned a different level of work ethic when I was there. You know, I got out there the first day, I'm throwing up in the toilet. Like, I thought I could hoop and stuff. And I'm like, man, these guys are crazy, crazy good. But just being there and playing under him, he definitely, I haven't even talked to him in years, but just his impact on like believing in me and putting me in a position to succeed. At that age, I didn't have anybody else, even on that level, playing sports that believed in me in that way. So there was definitely some people along the way that definitely believed and kind of pushed me to continue to pursue like my dreams and the things I want to do. Yeah. And it is important to have somebody to like say they believe in you and say, you know, like that you matter and that you're important and like that you are leaving an impact.
Yeah. Have you got a chance to, because I've been trying to do this now that I'm older. I've been going back around to those same people who poured into me when I was younger. I've been trying to find them on different platforms, and I tell them everything. Yeah. And so have you got a chance to?
The person, actually, James White, actually asked me, and I need to reach out. I should do it like after this interview, because my mom sent me his number, and I was like, man, I ain't talked to James in a while. I don't have his number. I reached out to my mom, and she got it for me. And it was like maybe a couple weeks ago. And you know, you get on the move and you kind of forget. Yeah. But I definitely he's been on my heart to reach out to, so I'm gonna reach out to him.
Yeah,
on
man.
this combo, because it's just sometimes you just got to just be like, hey, you know, how you doing? Thank you, you know, like I've expressed it to him before, but I haven't talked to him in a little bit. So just, you know, he's getting older too. Sometimes you just like you don't know, especially when you don't talk to people in a while, like when you will see them again and when you'll talk to them. So it's like I think it is important to just kind of express like that gratitude and that gratefulness for, you know, just having a heart to be there for you in that way.
Yeah, like I watched a video of there was like a music teacher who brought all his old music students in a
Yeah.
room to do like a rehearsal.
Yeah.
And they instantly just kind of all snapped back into that space.
Yeah.
And so, and I know how much that meant to him. Like when you see like all these people who you've poured into over the years, and sometimes everybody goes, they separate ways, and sometimes you just kind of assume the best.
Yeah.
But to go back and hear how, that this person has made an impact on you, or to hear directly from the student, like there's nothing like that. Like I can tell you now, from my perspective as a mentor,
Yeah.
I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like whenever they come back, I be like, oh my God. Like I be
got
telling my
tears in your
family,
eyes,
I
right?
have tears in my eyes. I be crying all the time. I don't know what happened, man. It's some Pixar movies. That's what I blame it on. But I just got really sentimental over that stuff. When I see them doing well, it feels like I could kind of close up certain loops in my life.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, what happened with this person? And then you turn around and be like, oh, actually, you turned out really well.
Yeah.
And that the words I was saying wasn't just like going on deaf ears.
Falling
It's
on
like
deaf ears,
it actually, registered with you. And even if it didn't hit in the same way that I thought it would, but just the fact that you're present is amazing.
Yeah.
So
we just have about a minute left. To wrap up, I'm curious if you can maybe ask each other, what are your hopes for the future of the kids that you work for and the young people in your community?
Yeah, what do you see for the community that you've been cultivating, and all these young people that have come through the studio? Some I've seen, already going to do some amazing things, and I know some hard times has happened, with some of the kids as well. So like, what do you see for like the community you have?
my hope is that we kind of create a new norm. Like through all these ripple effects that they turn around and be like, they create a new culture that was better than the culture that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And that they are just automatically prone to helping each other and pouring into the community and seeing their neighborhood as a jewel and not just like a charity case or something like that, or, the statistics that they give. Like, I want them to kind of be like, to be everything that I wanted us to be,
Yeah.
And but I want them to go live long, fulfilling lives, man. I want to watch them get their first house. You know what I'm saying? I want to get the invitations to when they get married. I want them to send me the postcards when they got like the Christmas cards with the kids and stuff like that. I want to see them live long, fulfilled lives as opposed to, getting those phone calls when their lives get cut down short. So that's my ultimate dream.
Yeah.
Whatever they turn out to be, that's just fine. But as long as they're here, that's all I care about. How about you? What about
same thing as in a way, just sending a ripple effect. I think about like them students from Passport Carriers from the exchange film, and just I've stayed in contact with them. They've been through some ups and downs, but just to see like them continue to move in the world and do different things, and just all the kids that I've talked to impacted in different ways. Just a ripple effect that they would go on as adults and also do the same thing. Find some other kids that they need to talk to and kind of build out the community in that way. Like it's just one step at a time, one kid at a time, really. But I think it just kind of builds from there.
Absolutely.